AD is the NBA's leading scorer with 32.6 points per game. LeBron finished with 20 points and 11 assists. UCLA's women's basketball team won their first game of the season with a 7-point win over Louisville. Lauren Betts led the Bruins with 18 points and 13 rebounds. You too can be an impact player today. All you need to do is go to your nearest polling place and vote. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. Can I confess something to you? As a longtime California voter, I am so over our ballot proposition process. So many ballot measures, so little time. Too often our so-called leaders don't really lead, and too often many of these ballot measures are misleading. I mean, does yes or no mean I'm voting for it or against it? Talk about a ball of confusion. But here's what I know for sure. I am abundantly clear about yes on Measure A, which would create thousands of new affordable housing units and expand drug and mental health treatment. Every day I step outside our radio station here in Leimert Park, I see what happens when we neglect, when we avoid addressing these critical issues in our beloved community. It is quite candidly a shame and a disgrace. And no, it's not just you. I am personally calling City Hall and care agencies routinely as well. Is this the Tavis Smiley? Yes, it is. I refuse to let the suffering of our people get rendered invisible. Frankly, the reason I'm talking to you about this right now on the radio is because I have not seen the kind of leadership I had expected and hoped to see to get Measure A passed. I guess my hope needs some help. So, I'm sharing this message with you with the hope that you will do the right thing for them and for us. And just so you don't get it twisted, them is us. Yes on A. With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
KBLA Talk 1580. When you hear that song, you know who's on the microphone with me. He is one of our premier scholars in the country. He holds the Moores Professorship of History and African American Studies. He's got numerous books and scholarly articles, more than 100. He's got his PhD in history from Columbia, his JD from UC Berkeley, and his BA from Princeton. I'm talking about Dr. Gerald Horne. Good morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming on. Hopefully happy Election Day to you, Dr. Horne.
Well, we'll know within 72 hours or so. I think that if Trump loses, it will be due to the question of reproductive freedom.
Yeah.
The Harris campaign has been hammering that question. A good deal of her ads have been focused on that question. And she, as a woman, is obviously an appropriate spokesperson for that question. And on the other hand, if Trump prevails, it will likely be due to the Gaza question. And there's some funny business that's taking place because, as you probably know, Tiffany Trump, the president's daughter, is just married into a billionaire Lebanese family with multiple investments in West Africa, particularly Nigeria. And Mr. Boulos, her father-in-law, has been spending quality time in Michigan, where he's been buttonholing leaders of the Arab American community, not without effect. I guess that these Arab American leaders have forgotten the Muslim ban. They've forgotten Mr. Trump carrying water for Israel. But in any case, apparently his overtures have been effective.
Yeah, I was reading about that last night. So they actually have a Lebanese American in the family, and they're leveraging it. It's amazing to me that they don't remember because, I mean, there's so many things. More recently, Jared Kushner speculating about beachside property in Gaza, the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem, and it surprises me that that's effective. You think that is more of an issue in a prospective Trump victory than immigration?
Oh, of course. There are other issues. I hear complaints about inflation and the price of groceries. Obviously, immigration is an issue. And I would like to caution our community in particular about that issue, because if Trump wins, many of us may become immigrants in Canada or Mexico, for example. And so, once again, a cautionary note.
Yeah, I think the issue of inflation is puzzling too, because most of the economists are saying that the tariffs and other economic policy plans, such as they are, that Trump has put forward, would actually raise prices for most Americans.
Well, Trump, it hasn't gotten that much publicity, but I think it should be front and center. He has this harebrained scheme that taxes can be reduced across the board in the United States with the shortfall made up by tariffs. That is to say, taxing goods coming to this country from China or from Europe, for example. But of course, he has set to one side, to put it mildly, the idea of U.S. exports being subjected to tariffs and the impact that might have on U.S. workers who then could be laid off.
Right. Not to mention the fact that they pass those prices on to consumers. I mean, that's, basic. They want to complain about how raising the minimum wage would raise prices, but skip over how tariffs would do so. I think we've lost Dr. Gerald Horne, but we will get him back. He's probably somewhere traveling around so he could write a book. That's what he's usually doing. 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580 is the number if you want to call in. Polly's in the chat talking about Lyft teaming up with the NAACP to get you to the polls. It's true that if you put in I think it's election 2024 code, you get 50% off today on Lyft. We've got Dr. Gerald Horne. Once again, Dr. Horne, I mean, I don't want to linger too much on Trump because I just don't feel like the conversation seems to change anyone's mind that isn't already changed. But once again, he does things and people somehow give him a pass to think it's going to do the opposite of what's going to do. I'm going to tax other countries, and somehow your prices are going to go down.
Well, there's a lot of magical thinking in this country.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, after all is said and done, Mr. Trump has barely been able to get over the 46% of the electorate, total 47% that he received roughly in 2016 and 2020. And polls suggest, to the extent that you feel that polls are credible, that he'll hardly surpass that 46 or 47% number in 2024. Now, with regard to polls, there's psychological warfare taking place. because there are a lot of fake and phony polls that are circulating, trying to create this psychological warfare, suggesting that Trump is ahead and that if he does not prevail, it'll be because of dirty tricks and hanky-panky by his opponents. And we really are going to have to buckle our seatbelts, because I think that starting tonight, there could be a replay of January 6, 2021, when, as you know, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and other neo-fascist elements took to the streets and began cracking heads.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I learned something, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that I just learned that there's something that pollsters do, which is poll weighting, where if their poll is too far away from the results of other surveys, they actually will, I guess there's a supposedly scientific method for it, but they will actually change their polling by weighting different populations differently within the polling so that it lines up more with other surveys. And to me, that backs up what you just said, Dr. Horne, that if they're trying to all be in alignment with each other so that everyone can keep saying, oh, it's such a close race, that, that's shady to me.
Shady indeed. But speaking of polls, on the other hand, I'm sure you followed the poll coming out of Iowa, the Seltzer poll, the gold standard of polls, so-called, which had Vice President Harris ahead by 4 in a state that Mr. Trump has prevailed in a conservative state. And once again, Ann Seltzer, the pollster, suggests that women's rights was a major key to that particular result. And then in your neighbor, Nevada, John Ralston, who is not a pollster but a columnist with his finger on the pulse of voters in the Silver State, his final suggestion is that Vice President Harris is ahead 48.5 to 48.2. Now, yeah, he really he really slices the salami. But Vice President Harris may be on the coattails of U.S. senatorial incumbent Jackie Rosen, who is handily beating her Republican opponent, Sam Brown, despite of a lack of charisma on her part.
You got no riz. But that is interesting. I was wondering about North Carolina because it seemed like Trump was spending a whole lot of time there. Now, things he does are often not logical, but it also seemed like Harris spent a good deal of time there. So I wondered if she might actually walk away with that state.
Well, it's possible. I'm sure you've been following the travails of Mark Robinson, the black gubernatorial nominee.
The porn guy. The porn guy.
I won't go into the details about all his transgressions. But suffice it to say that he's sinking like a stone in North Carolina, and he's dragging down Mr. Trump, who once called him Martin Luther King on steroids. That was intended as a compliment. And I think that helps to explain why both Trump and Vance have been spending so much quality time in the Tar Heel state. It's
funny to me, Dr. Horne, that people keep saying they don't know enough about Kamala Harris, but who is J.D. Vance? I mean, he popped out of the ground like a mushroom. He's been a senator for like 10 minutes. Donald Trump is not a healthy guy, and he's 78. No one seems to be concerned about President Vance.
Well, you also raised another issue that has not received sufficient traction. As you probably know, the man who helped to create J.D. Vance was Peter Thiel, who has roots in apartheid Namibia when it was a colony of South Africa. That opens the door to examining all of the other men who are supporting Mr. Trump, speaking of Elon Musk in the first place. From
South Africa again, yeah.
David Sachs, from another billionaire from Silicon Valley out of Cape Town. And, of course, the soft-spoken Roloff Botha. That name might ring a bell with your audience since his grandfather was the last foreign minister of apartheid South Africa.
Wow.
And it's reasonable to infer that these men, these billionaire men with roots in apartheid, may want to recreate their homeland in North America.
Yeah, think. Talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. If you got a question or a conversation, 800-920-1580. Getting some perspective, national and international, on this key election day. We are your election information station, KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has a program specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm, A-rated by the Better Business Bureau. Their award-winning team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to end your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other IRS actions. Make sure you're getting the best options to resolve your tax problems. Call the experts at Optima today for a free confidential consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. The Live Your Life organization mentors young women, helping them break negative mindsets and see beyond their surroundings. Through career exposure and hands-on training, they're encouraged to think big, stay focused, and make positive choices. Founded by Nikisha Mama Boo Smith, who transformed her life to become a community leader. Live Your Life is changing lives, but they need your help. They're raising funds to keep their new building open and expand their programs. Your donations will support food, clothes, hygiene products, and holiday giveaways. Visit liveyourlife32.com. That's LIVEYOLIFE32.com to help today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Politics has become so messy lately, it's hard to find a reason to be hopeful. Hi, my name is Shakira. I'd like to tell you why Adam Schiff gives me hope. My parents raised me to take my right to vote seriously, so I try to stay on top of what's going on. I saw Adam Schiff lead the impeachment and insurrection hearings. He seemed like someone I could believe in. Then I actually met him at the MLK parade in South Central LA this year. Adam listened. He cared. I got to see who he is. He understands the struggle we have with the cost of living, all the parents working extra shifts and taking second jobs to get by. He gets a threat to our democracy and our freedoms. Adam Schiff knows how tough things really are for a lot of us, and I believe he's going to do something about it. It gives me hope, but hope isn't enough. We need to vote for Adam Schiff for Senate.
I'm Adam Schiff, candidate for Senate, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Schiff for Senate.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Okay, this hour just disappears when I'm talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. A few things I want to touch on. The Senate and the House are, folks, what I hear a lot of commentators saying that they're highly likely to be both taken by Republicans. I heard Nancy Pelosi yesterday quite confidently stating that she felt Dems would take back the House. That's going to be key. Whoever wins at the top of the ticket.
Well, there is a possibility that beginning in 2025, there will be a Speaker, Hakeem Jeffries, hailing from Brooklyn, New York. It seems to me, at least, unless I've misread the tea leaves, that it's going to be very difficult for the Democrats to retain the Senate, given the trouble faced in Montana by Senator Tester, given the fact that Jim Justice, a Republican, a former popular so-called governor of West Virginia, is expected to take the seat of Senator Manchin, the conservative Democrat. And Senator Casey of Pennsylvania, a Democrat, is in trouble and facing his billionaire opponent, Republican David McCormick. But we shall see. I mean, these races are all very close, and the Republicans have problems because in their typical free market manner, they outsourced a lot of their door knocking and ground game to private interests, such as the super PAC financed by Elon Musk. And apparently they're not doing a very good job of it. Whereas the Democrats are relying upon a lot of volunteers. And it's the old debate of material incentives versus moral incentives. And apparently the latter, in terms of this volunteer labor for the Democrats, is prevailing.
Interesting. This should seem really basic, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Why does it take so long to count? Donald Trump says that we should count all the votes on Election Day. We should know on Election Day. Explain why it takes a long time to count millions of votes.
Well, that's the rare question that has the answer embedded in it. I mean, as of now, there have probably been about 80 million votes cast already, largely by mail. Now, you can imagine the labor it requires to count 80 million votes. And that's not to get into the story of how Republicans are seeking to intimidate election workers. In Durham County, North Carolina, for example, election workers have been issued panic buttons that allows them to summon 911 if they're under attack, for example.
Right.
And then there's the
if they see
question.
Rudy Giuliani coming, they can hit the panic button.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the least they can do. And so I think it's understandable why we won't know tonight. We won't know tonight unless there's a landslide.
Yeah.
And right now, that does not seem to be in the offing.
Okay. I think Kamala could win by more than folks think, but, I do agree it could break the other way. Okay, so let's talk a little. I have some domestic questions, but I want to go international because you're the smartest person I know on these issues. Let's talk about, Gaza, Lebanon, the West Bank, the difference between these two candidates on that, because you made the point that Gaza could cost Kamala Harris the election based on the lobbying of Trump's his daughter's father-in-law, this Lebanese billionaire. But there's also conversation on the left and the so-called Jill Stein voter. I say so-called because to me, if she's so concerned about black people, she should step down and endorse Weston Abdullah. But anyway, the third-party voter, what's the difference, in your opinion, between policy on the Middle East under a Trump administration versus a Harris administration?
Well, I think the U.S. support for Israel is structural. That is to say that it has a lot to do with the power of the Zionist lobby. It has a lot to do with campaign finance, whereby billionaires like Miriam Adelson, who is a major casino magnate out of neighboring Nevada, a major supporter of Mr. Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu alike. And on the Democrat side, you have Jeffrey Katzenberg, the Hollywood billionaire, who is a major supporter of former Senator Harris, current Vice President Harris. And these billionaires are all supporters of Israel, and they fund the two parties. So if Mr. Trump manages to pull the rabbit out of the hat and prevail in this election, I don't necessarily see a change in U.S. policy. And if there is a change, it'll be a change for the worse, in the sense that he will probably collude with Mr. Netanyahu in an attack on Iran, which, as you know, he has been hostile to. I think that's one of the reasons why many Israeli voters, supporters of Mr. Netanyahu, are hoping and wishing for a Trump victory.
Yeah.
And the number of Israelis who are hoping and wishing for a Vice President Harris victory are negligible at best.
Okay, we're going to go to Fahima calling us from Washington, D.C. Good morning, Fahima.
Greetings, Dominique and Dr. Horne. This is Fahima. I wanted to let you know that, like, Akua Holt's daughter is working in Colorado and on the ground. because she opened some of the campaign offices, and she shared that some of the people who are claiming to vote for Donald Trump are giving them the nod that they're not voting for Trump. They're going to vote for Harris, but they may not want their partners to know. And she said this has happened on more than one occasion when they were out canvassing and door knocking.
Well, people call that lying, and now the Republicans have this fake righteous indignation about lying to your husband or your wife or whatever. But there's a reason why ballots are secret, right, Dr. Horne?
Well, yes, and there's a justifiable fear and apprehension about domestic violence, with regard to these patriarchs who think that their partner should vote like they do. And this may be turning the so-called Bradley effect on its head. Recall that in 1982, the black mayor of Los Angeles, Tom Bradley, ran for governor against George Deukmejian. There were voters who suggested that they would vote for Bradley. When they got in the voting booth, they voted for Deukmejian. Perhaps there's a reverse Bradley effect, with those who say they're voting for Trump get in the privacy of the voting booth and decide to pull the lever for someone other than Mr. Trump.
Absolutely could be. I feel like, a little apprehensive because when we look at the history of white women voters, they typically vote their privilege over their best interests. In reality, maybe this time is different because women are actually dying. But that has me nervous.
Well, indeed. But on the other hand, as you know more than most, there have been these referenda on reproductive rights for women. They prevailed in states like Kansas. They'll probably drive up the turnout in states like Florida. And I understand that it helps to account for that shock poll that I just cited from Iowa, for example. Since that there was an abortion ban enacted by the legislature that's now under fire. So all of this will come clear in the next 72 hours or so.
Thank you, Fahima. Appreciate the insight there. We got news, traffic, and sports right here. I really want to get your thoughts when we come forward on what Trump versus Harris presidency might look like in terms of Haiti, Ukraine, and the motherland with all 54, 55 countries there. Just in an overview. We're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Today is Election Day, and Washington voters have until 8 p.m. to get their ballots to an official drop box. Ballots that are dropped in the mail must be postmarked with today's date or earlier. A multi-agency task force will be on standby to monitor Election Day security throughout Nevada. The task force includes members of federal, state, and local law enforcement. It will be ready to address any physical or cybersecurity issues that may arise today. More than 1 million Nevadans have already voted. The total number of ballots turned in as of Monday morning was 1,068,977. That puts the voter turnout at 52.5%. And several businesses are celebrating Election Day with special deals. Krispy Kreme is giving away free donuts. Uber is also offering a 25% discount on Uber Eats. Dave & Buster's is offering half-price games, and even IKEA wants to celebrate voters with free frozen yogurt. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Black Friday buildup is here at Lowe's. Get up to 35% off select major appliances, plus save up to $500 when you buy select LG major appliances. Valid 10/24 through 11/5 cannot be combined with additional discounts. See Lowe's.com for details and qualifying items while supplies last.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Congratulations to the Clippers. They finally got their first win in their new home, the Intuit Dome, after 4 tries. The Clippers defeated San Antonio Monday night 113-104. Norman Powell led the Clippers with 23 points. The Clippers had to battle back from a disastrous first quarter. They trailed by 26 points at the end of the quarter. The Lakers are 1-3 on their 5-game road trip. They lost to Detroit 115-103 despite getting 37 points from Anthony Davis. AD is the NBA's leading scorer with 32.6 points per game. LeBron finished with 20 points and 11 assists. UCLA's women's basketball team won their first game of the season with a 7-point win over Louisville. Lauren Betts led the Bruins with 18 points and 13 rebounds. You too can be an impact player today. All you need to do is go to your nearest polling place and vote. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
If we're the ones disproportionately impacted by these climate catastrophes,
Why should we be silent?
turning up the volume all year long on the climate conversation with KBLA Talk 1580.
Angelinos, it is critical to vote down ballot this November, especially for our local judges. Judges make major decisions, not just in our criminal courts, but also in our family, juvenile, small claims, and housing courts across LA County. This November, we must elect community lawyers who will bring their informed legal experiences to the LA Superior Court. The defenders of justice are Erica Wiley for seat number 48 and George Turner for seat number 39. If you live in LA County, they will be on your ballot. Ad paid for by the Justice PAC by La Defensa, a project of Tide's advocacy for Turner and Wiley for Judge 2024. Top funders include Patty Quillen and Smart Justice California Action Fund.
This is 60-second Chevy Holiday Red Tag Radio, produced for Carol H. Williams by Radio Bob Resort on October 31st, 2024. Spot title Every Adventure 60. ISKI code GC SV 0021000.
Whether you're going over the river and through the woods in the capable Silverado 1500, getting the choir to church on time in the 3-row Traverse,
Thank you!
or driving cross town to deliver your famous Cajun-spiced holiday turkey in the Equinox EV, America's most affordable EV with a 315-plus mile range. Add confidence to every holiday adventure and get it done with a rugged and capable Chevy truck or SUV. Find your red tag. Get 0% APR financing for 36 months on select popular Chevy models when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Offer available on all 2025 Equinox and 2024 Silverado, Equinox EV, Blazer EV, and Silverado EV models. Monthly payment is $2,860 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 22.2%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 12/2/24.
Thank you!
Feeding Our Friends on the Outside will be hosting its 15th annual Feeding the Homeless event in Greater Los Angeles on Sunday, November 10th from noon until at 11129 South Central Avenue in Los Angeles. If you would like to donate or volunteer, please call 310-981-6377 or email them at feedingourfriends05@gmail.com. feedingourfriends05@gmail.com. It's the 15th anniversary of Feeding Our Friends on the Outside, Sunday, November 10th from noon until 11129 South Central Avenue in Los Angeles. For more information, call 310-981-6377. 310-981-6377. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm trying to get through all these issues that I think are so important. I'm talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. Just, getting out the vote has got to be key, right? I mean, if we don't come out, it always leans towards against justice, towards conservatism. We here in LA, we so far haven't seen a great African American voter turnout.
Really, I'm surprised by that. How do you know that?
Well, I'm talking to folks on various campaigns that are looking at polling, and so far, hopefully we're all showing up today. You know how sometimes we like to do things at the last minute. I'm just saying, but we need to make it happen.
Well, that may have something to do with the fact that California is not in play. It's expected to vote for Harris. It's a blue state.
Yeah.
The Democrats have a majority in Sacramento.
But we still have a district attorney on the ballot here, in L.A. We've got a progressive DA in George Gascon who's under attack. We still have Proposition 36, which is bringing us back to the bad old days of 3 strikes, and Prop 6, which would end forced labor in prisons. So, and those are just a few of the important things on the ballot.
Well, I'm not sure if California is an indicator of what's happening nationally. If you look at the 7 swing states, which include 2 of your neighbors, speaking of Arizona and Nevada, apparently the door knocking is proceeding apace in those particular states. And that brings us, of course, to the contradictions of this presidential election, which is determined by an electoral college, and therefore you can get the most votes, as Al Gore did and as Hillary Rodham Clinton did, and still lose. And this electoral college, obviously, it needs to go to the junk heap of history, but it won't happen anytime soon.
And as I said earlier in the show, if we could just get statehood for D.C. and Puerto Rico, that would solve a lot of problems, at least in the Senate.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Puerto Rico, because I'm sure you and your audience are familiar with another turning point in this electoral cycle, the insults heaped upon the island, Puerto Rico, as the so-called island of garbage, for example. There are 5.8 million Puerto Ricans concentrated in the United States, particularly in Pennsylvania, a swing state, particularly in Allentown, in eastern Pennsylvania. And then on the island itself, there is a gubernatorial election. And what I'm looking at is whether or not the inflamed ire of Puerto Ricans will lead them to vote for a gubernatorial candidate who pledges to lead the island to independence, which is a cause that has not been in the forefront of late.
Yeah, it hasn't been. That's another option, right? They could break away from the United States and become independent. I read that Bad Bunny has endorsed the independence candidate. Is that right? Bad Bunny is one of the most popular entertainers in the world, happens to be Puerto Rican.
Well, the Puerto Rican celebrities have showed up. I'm sure you saw Jennifer Lopez at the Nevada rally for Vice President Harris, Ricky Martin at the Pennsylvania rally for Vice President Harris, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Rita Moreno are all active against Mr. Trump.
Mark Anthony, too, yeah.
Yeah, it really struck a nerve. I mean, understandably, when you have this so-called comedian heaping insults on your homeland.
I mean, and the thing about it was the other speakers in that rally were saying racist things too. It wasn't just the comedian. I mean, just to put it in context, he was maybe the most soundbite worthy, but there was a bunch of really racist, sexist, misogynist things said by actual politicians at that political rally,
including the former mayor, 80-plus-year-old Rudy Giuliani, who, in a maneuver dictated by judges, not the gods, is about to lose a good deal of his real estate and cars.
I love that story so much. I know we're not supposed to kick people while they're down, but, the fact that they have to give him to these, he has to give that stuff to these black women who he harassed and ruined their lives, these election workers, there's something really satisfying about that.
It certainly is, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Okay, talk to me. I'm going to do a little speed round here. Talk to me about Ukraine, the difference in 2 different administrations here on Ukraine. It seems like pretty stark.
Pretty stark indeed. Mr. Trump will likely pull the plug on the Kiev regime. Recall that one of the reasons that J.D. Vance won a Republican primary for the U.S. Senate was that in a crucial debate, he was the only candidate who echoed Mr. Trump with regard to pulling the plug on Kiev. And so that is one of the starkest differences between the 2 campaigns. That is to say, whether or not to continue aid to Ukraine.
Right, and even if you're like me and you think we've given them too much money and too much weaponry, the idea of completely abandoning Ukraine, it's kind of opening the door to Russia to do many other things, possibly.
Well, I think we also, and this may be overly optimistic, to look ahead. That is to say, assuming that Vice President Harris prevails, she had to make a lot of deals in order to prevail. Keep in mind that she was campaigning with Robert Hagan, the hawk who writes for the Washington Post, has endorsed her, as has Dick Cheney, and the time is going to come when you have to pay the piper after you cut those kinds of deals.
Yeah, that's what scares me about those Republican endorsements.
It should be frightening to any sentient voter, because these Republicans, like the Cheneys, they have a lot of leverage amongst the electorate. And I'm not even sure how many in their constituency they can really deliver.
Okay, what about Haiti? I mean, I seem to remember that the Trump administration had some pretty horrible policies toward Haiti.
Well, you can probably expect the immigration status of Haitians in the United States to change dramatically. Mr. Trump has pledged to engage in mass deportations, not only of Haitians, but of course Mexicans and others, just as they see tariffs as an all-encompassing remedy to solve the U.S. deficit. As they see it, if you get rid of thousands, if not millions, of immigrants, particularly Haitians, it'll cause rent costs to fall. It'll cause hospitals not to be overburdened. So Haitians in the United States have a lot to fear if Mr. Trump returns to office. And as for the island itself, I'm not sure if there'll be that much of a change. I think that there'll probably be continuing support to the Kenyan troops in Haiti by a Trump team.
And, Paulie points out that Bad Bunny also endorsed Kamala Harris. That is true. And what about AFRICOM, the U.S. Policy in military presence on the continent?
Well, as you know, Mr. Trump has referred to the entire continent as being replete with so-called S-hole countries.
Yeah.
And that does not necessarily bode well. I've also noticed there's a lot of pressure right now on South Africa because of its taking Israel into the dock in terms of charging Israel with genocide in the International Court of Justice in The Hague, in terms of being part of the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, in terms of South Africa seeking to oust Taiwan, the rebel island that China claims is its own, from a prime piece of real estate in Pretoria. And I expect that pressure to continue, if not accelerate, under a Trump administration.
Interesting. We're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne, and it is Election Day. If you've got questions or conversation, certainly this is the man to talk to. 800-920-1580. Whew. We are unapologetically progressive. Yes, even on Election Day. KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers just like you. From big savings on used EVs to building new charging plazas, LADWP is charging ahead to help all Angelenos experience the benefits of EVs. Get rebates of up to $4,000 for a used EV and $1,750 for a charger. Learn more at ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV. Angelenos, it is critical to vote down ballot this November, especially for our local judges. Judges make major decisions, not just in our criminal courts, but also in our family, juvenile, small claims, and housing courts across LA County. This November, we must elect community lawyers who will bring their informed legal experiences to the LA Superior Court. The defenders of justice are Erica Wiley for seat number 48 and George Turner for seat number 39. If you live in LA County, they will be on your ballot. Ad paid for by the Justice PAC by La Defensa, a project of Tide's advocacy for Turner and Wiley for Judge 2024. Top funders include Patty Quillen and Smart Justice California Action Fund.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why, when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide cleans better than the leading competitive free detergent, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues.
Plus, Tide Free and Gentle has no dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on her skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to new heights? KBLA Talk 1580 is your partner in success. Every day, we celebrate and elevate Black-owned businesses across our community. Our KBLA SMB Marketplace currently features The Cookie Dip, Badass Bakes, Hair Concoction, Higher Education Accreditation Consulting, LACC Radiology Technology Department, and Malik Books. Your business deserves to be heard. Let KBLA Talk 1580 amplify your voice and connect you with our powerful community of listeners. Email smb@kbla1580.com today. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
This is Mayor Karen Bass asking you to vote yes on Measure A to help move people off the street and into mental health treatment. We want people to get better so we can turn the corner on the homelessness crisis and so our neighborhoods can be cleaner and safer. Measure A breaks new ground by creating help for renters and housing affordability across LA to prevent homelessness. And it also stops a loss of funding that would cause a devastating 28% increase in homelessness. So join the Women and Children's Crisis Center, Habitat for Humanity, the Greater LA African American Chamber of Commerce, and me, and vote yes on Measure A. And don't wait, you can vote today, so please do. Thank you.
Ad paid for by Yes on A, Neighbors for Affordable Housing and Housing Solutions Now. Ad committee's top funders, California Community Foundation and Western State Regional Council of Carpenters.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
Talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. I'm going to squeeze in as many of these important questions as we can before we lose him at the top of the hour. But I want to let you know that we are live on election night. Areva Martin and Nee Cordelai-Corte will be on the East Coast live from Kamala Harris Election Night headquarters at Howard University. Myself and Tavis Smiley will be holding it down in the studio. Our election coverage starts at 4 p.m. Pacific. We're going to have all kinds of special guests, insiders, and analysts. And we will be here for you during the election. We are your election information station, KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. Gerald Horne, I noticed from some of my different reading that investors still are betting on Trump to win in the real estate sector and, as you point out, in the private prison industry. Explain.
Well, there's an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning about what's called the Trump trade. That is to say, betting on a Trump victory and betting that he will detain more people. Recall, we just mentioned the plan to incarcerate, if not detain, thousands, perhaps even millions of immigrants without proper documentation. And then, of course, we already know that black people in particular are overrepresented in the prison industrial complex. And so the investor class is thinking that it's quite wise monetarily to invest in prison stocks. As you know, there's a private prison industry that then has ancillary industries attached to it, everything from telephones, that is to say, prisoners are overcharged to make phone calls to their loved ones, for example. So this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's expected that if Trump wins, that it will be rolling in dough. The same holds true for military stocks, because Mr. Trump is insisting that other NATO countries like Canada and the Western European nations spend more on the military. That means spending more in buying weapons from Boeing and Lockheed Martin and Northrop. And so canny investors are also investing in those particular industries as well.
And that's telling. This is the same guy who said one day of rough policing would solve all of our problems. So if you think black folks aren't some of the folks going to jail, you might not be paying attention. Dr. Horne, you had a comment on the Dodgers?
Well, sure. I mean, I have to say, I was torn by the World Series because I've been a long-term fan of the Yankees as my American League pick, a long-term fan of the Dodgers, and I must say my hometown St. Louis Cardinals as a National League pick. Up until the time that the first pitch was thrown, I was not sure who I would root for. But as it turned out, your audience will be happy to know I was rooting for the Dodgers, and I'm happy to see that they prevailed, and I expect them to make a run at the Yankee star, Juan Soto. If they get him, it's lights out for the National League.
And the Lakers?
Well, obviously, the new coach has helped to up the game of Anthony Davis. Now, of course, the Lakers are in the newspapers. And I should mention, to connect these two issues, I don't know if you saw the video that LeBron James put out in his endorsement of Vice President Harris. In some ways, it was more effective than Harris's own campaign ads in terms of suggesting why this billionaire basketball player would be voting for the vice president.
Yeah. A lot of reporting now about votes being thrown out, being challenged. Oh, these these folks might be prospective. They might not have papers, or they're just all different kinds of technicalities about the way the ballots are delivered or whether they were overseas ballots. It seems like Republicans are skimming off votes by pre-disqualifying voters. Should we be worried about that?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, what you should also expect are robocalls that suggest to prospective voters, be sure to vote on Friday, for example. In other words, trying to mislead them so that they won't vote on Tuesday, November 5th. I mean, there are all sorts of dirty tricks in store. But to repeat, I think what we have to worry about is violence.
Violence, yeah.
I expect another replay of January 6, 2021.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's been reporting about it. Those who have not been incarcerated feel that if Mr. Trump wins, those who have been incarcerated feel that if Mr. Trump wins, they'll pardon them.
Right.
He's actually said as much.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order for Mr. Trump to escape prison, in order for the January 6 convicts to escape prison, they're betting heavily on a Trump victory, but not only betting on it, they're putting their fists behind it.
But if he loses, you don't think they learned anything from all those folks going to prison? I mean, and getting in trouble, being tracked down. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know if. I see these articles about a second civil war, and I'm hearing about the reformation of the Proud Boys and all of this chatter on some of the communication, different communication systems about the organizing of white supremacists. But I don't know. You think they'll do it again?
Well, to your point, the good news is that unlike January 2021, Mr. Trump is not at the apex of political power. And he is, in a sense, just another private citizen. Mr. Biden is at the apex of political power. And if he and his comrades in the Democratic Party have enough backbone, spine, and gumption, they can squash a potential insurrection, but we shall see.
Yeah, the way they would have done had those been Black Lives Matter protesters running up on the Capitol.
Absolutely. I mean, contrary to what Mr. Trump has said, there were deaths, there were injuries. It was very serious and very significant. And, of course, they have much more in store.
What about the legal challenges, Dr. Gerald Horne, and the these local election boards and stuff that have been put in place since the last attempt at stealing an election, overturning an election? Do you think that could prevail, or do you think the Democrats are truly prepared for that?
Well, you might have seen that article in the New York Times Magazine on Sunday talking about how the Republicans have made a special push to put their workers into these electoral boards. But on the other hand, as also concerning the insurrectionists, some of those election workers who were engaged in hanky-panky in 2020 and 2022 are now facing hard time in prison. And you would hope that that's a signal to Republican election workers in 2024. But I guess they're banking on a Trump victory, and then they'll receive a pardon.
Dr. Gerald Horne, last time we talked, you probably gave the most helpful prescription for what we do if Trump wins. But we didn't talk about what we ought to be thinking about doing if Kamala Harris wins.
Well, I think that even if Kamala Harris wins, that it's likely that the Republicans will control the Senate. It is probable that she'll have to pay back campaign debts to Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. And so we should remain vigilant, whoever wins, because that is the nature of our residence in North America.
Yeah. And certainly, I mean, we say around here, we're your ancestors' favorite radio station. I think that their ancestors are rolling deep today, and whoever wins, like you said, we will be all right, and we have our work cut out for us.
Work indeed, because let's talk about some of these campaign promises that Vice President Harris has made with regard to prices and price gouging in particular. It's difficult to see how that will survive contact with a Republican-controlled Senate.
Dr. Gerald Horne, 30 seconds here. Tell us how to buy your books, track your lectures, follow you around.
Well, I'm not underground yet, so I'm easy to find online. We're posting 2 or 3 lectures on YouTube a week, and likely this conversation will be posted on YouTube as well. So in order to keep up with what I'm doing, that's the most likely place to visit.
Along with the bookstore, of course. Dr. Gerald Horne, thank you so much for joining us on this election day.
Thank you for inviting me.
And the phones are wide open. If you're running, you get 2 minutes. If you're not running, come on. 800-920-1580 is KBLA. Talk, 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Today is Election Day, and Washington voters have until 8 p.m. to get their ballots to an official drop box. Ballots that are dropped in the mail must be postmarked with today's date or earlier. A multi-agency task force will be on standby to monitor Election Day security throughout Nevada. The task force includes members of federal, state, and local law enforcement. It will be ready to address any physical or cybersecurity issues that may arise today. More than 1 million Nevadans have already voted. The total number of ballots turned in as of Monday morning was 1,068,977. That puts the voter turnout at 52.5%. And several businesses are celebrating Election Day with special deals. Krispy Kreme is giving away free donuts. Uber is also offering a 25% discount on Uber Eats. Dave & Buster's is offering half-price games, and even IKEA wants to celebrate voters with free frozen yogurt. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.